There are big claims being made about the injections Ozempic, that it solves brain fog, it cures your anxiety, cure for addiction, it improves fertility, it's an overall anti-inflammatory, it heals your heart tissue, it heals the metabolism, it regenerates pancreatic cells, it's regenerative of muscle. Did I forget me? The catch here is that when you take these drugs and you want any of these claimed benefits, well, you're going to have to take it forever. According to all the research, once you stop them, those benefits dissipate back to baseline.
Speaking of not being fat,
Yeah.
I'm back on the Ozempics.
Get out of here.
But they upped my dose because I was eating right through it like a pig the last time I did it. And now I want to die. It's so gross. Like I feel so sick all the time, but I'm looking thinner already.
You look great.
Yeah.
The main thing is that you're getting all the benefits of an eating disorder.
Yeah.
You know?
Don't forget to hit that subscribe button for more in-depth videos on how the body self-heals. There are loads of misleading claims out there about these injections. In my opinion, the best analysis of GLP-1 weight loss drugs is by Johan Hari. He's not a doctor, but he's an investigative journalist, which is better, in my opinion, because he has no skin in the game. He wrote the book Magic Pill.
Because some people who were the first people to read the book, apart from my friends, so some of them came up to me and said, "Oh, Johan, I loved your book. It made me really want to take Ozempic." Some of you came up to me and said, "Johan, I loved your book. It made me convinced that you'd have to be completely insane to take Ozempic." And it was a bit like, the dress. Some people saw it as gold, some people saw it as blue. And I felt like that meant I'd done my job, because unlike pretty much everything else I've ever written, I've ended this feeling as conflicted almost as I was at the start, right?
While I don't agree with all of Johan's references in this interview and in his book, his work on these drugs, his research, does a great job of comparing the risks versus the rewards and doing it honestly. He takes Ozempic himself, but he continues to offer an unbiased perspective, acknowledging the little we know and the many things we can't fully know. Various practitioners out there, especially those in my world, the functional medicine space, are on board now with using GLP-1 drugs for all kinds of things, or microdosing semaglutide to jumpstart weight loss for those who have struggled to lose weight. It's being touted as the solution for all, if not most, of your problems. We've also seen this countless times before in the past with other weight loss drugs too. For over 100 years, weight loss drugs have followed a very predictable pattern. From the 1930s with DNP, the body-burning bomb, killing people with high fevers after hundreds of thousands of people took it, or from the 1950s amphetamine boom, earning the nickname the mother's little helper, leading to addiction, severe reactions, and high doses needing to sustain the weight loss so people just couldn't do it, to the 90s with fen-phen craze, marketed as the new miracle drug on the cover of Time magazine, 18 million prescriptions written at the time. People reported strikingly similar experiences from what we hear from the Ozempic users today. Back then, people on fen-phen were saying, "I finally been freed from my lifelong struggle with food. I finally feel normal for the first time. For the first time ever in my life, I don't want donuts." See, this starts to sound familiar. These are the things we are seeing people say in the comments who use these GLP-1 drugs. Initially, fen-phen was marketed as safe with only mild dizziness or mild tiredness. But in reality, severe issues were hidden by the manufacturers and regulators. They paid $12 billion in settlements to thousands harmed, and it was the largest pharma settlement in history at that point.
Fenfluramine was banned in the US because of various side effects, including dizziness, confusion, hypertension, and death. Ask your doctor if fen-phen is right for you.
GLP-1 drugs like semaglutide may be the most effective pharmaceutical options to date for weight loss. Fair enough. But they are also a part of the same historical pattern, and they do not address the root causes of obesity tied to our food environment and how we live in our modern time. Johan summarizes the current state of affairs very well in this book, Magic Pill. From this perspective, Ozempic and the drugs that have followed represent a moment of madness. We built a food system that poisons us. And then, to keep us away from the avalanche of bad food, we decided to inject ourselves with a different potential poison, one that puts us off all food. We have started to take these drugs knowing surprisingly little about them. We have no idea about their long-term effects when they're used to treat obesity. We don't know if they will even carry on working for obese people beyond a few years. And chillingly, the scientists who helped create them, as I was going to learn, are not yet sure why they work or precisely what they are doing to us. As Johan points out, essentially, we have created an artificial solution to an artificial problem in our modern era. Now we must decide what we choose. And when you look at the research on the drugs, the benefits mirror what you get with simple calorie restriction and exercise. And again, I'll show you exactly why in this video. And I want to be clear, this is not about judgment. Only you can decide what is best for you. Being obese, struggling with food is no joke. I understand this personally. I've worked with many people to lose weight. I've helped my dad in the past, and I understand how complicated it could be. I understand the desire and the need to get help wherever you can. So this video is not to criticize anyone, but to encourage deeper thinking about these approaches and about certain pharmaceuticals. What do the clinical trials show? Yes, the drug works. Works for weight loss, that is clear. In several randomized trials, semaglutide participants had less hunger and reduced calories by up to 35%. So, of course, they lost weight. Also, trials with diabetics and people with high cardiovascular risk showed a relative risk reduction in events like heart attacks and strokes. Another clinical trial found similar cardiovascular benefits in people even without diabetes. These results seem exciting, right? But they are dependent on continued use of the drug. What happens when you stop these drugs? The Step 1 extension study showed that people regained most of the weight they lost within 1 year of stopping semaglutide. Cardiometabolic markers also returned to baseline. So we're talking about blood pressure, cholesterol, glucose. All of these went back to what they were prior. This suggests that the improvements are not permanent and do not indicate any kind of true healing, just temporary improvements via calorie restriction and simply eating less. So this is not a drug that you can take a little while to get a boost and then get off and maintain those benefits without dramatically changing your relationship with exercise, with food, in your mental state around those things. You may have heard people say, hey, this is not a weight loss drug. It's not just for weight loss. It's also a heart drug. It helps heal heart tissue. Claiming that these drugs heal heart tissue is like saying Tylenol heals a headache. These drugs don't really address the root causes, which is why things return to baseline for most people when they get off. And people might be saying, but Steph, studies say that they uniquely heal the heart. No, they are not unique, and I'll show you exactly why. Well, it turns out just plain old calorie restriction without the drugs improves heart function too. With semaglutide, we hear that, again, it could heal the heart, such as helping heart failure patients. Recent studies claim that, hey, it improves cardiovascular health independent of weight loss, meaning that even if you don't lose much weight, people still see that their heart function improves. And you'll hear this all over podcasts that, hey, it's not just a weight loss drug, it's a heart drug too. It helps the heart. These studies suggest that semaglutide improves cardiovascular health in patients with obesity-related heart failure. And again, the advocates get excited as if this is a unique feature of the drug. There's something really neat and cool going on here. But here's the rub. We already know what happens to the fat stored around the heart and also the liver when people restrict calories, even if they don't lose much weight. All the effects people celebrate with these drugs can be achieved and have been achieved clinically by simply eating less food and restricting calories. Don't believe me? Well, a randomized trial last year showed in older obese heart failure patients, calorie restriction and aerobic training produce large improvements in heart failure markers. These are the same benefits we see with heart failure patients on semaglutide. It's not new. It's what we see anytime people restrict calories, naturally or being forced to do so with this type of drug. Also, you may have heard that these drugs are special because they reduce your inflammation not so fast. Multiple studies show that natural calorie restriction, again without the drugs, improves heart health, cardiac markers, and inflammatory markers just as well as semaglutide. The calorie study, a randomized trial, found that reducing calories just by 25% significantly improved blood pressure, cholesterol, and overall inflammation. Let's take a look at this chart. This is what we see documented in the research, that plain old calorie restriction leads to the same or better outcomes. You reduce your food intake by 20 or 40%, which means you have weight loss. You have lower inflammatory markers. You have improved endothelial function, meaning improved vascular response. You have reduced fat around your organs, around the heart and around the liver. You have lower blood pressure. You have improved lipids. You have improved insulin. What's more, calorie restriction, even without significant total weight loss, consistently reduces visceral fat around organs like the liver and the heart due to visceral fat's higher responsiveness, it seems, to lower calorie intake. The quote, cardio benefits independent of weight loss that we see in semaglutide studies simply reflects visceral fat reduction from eating less, not something unique to the drug in all the studies that I look to tease this out. Advocates really, really want this drug to be special, but from all the studies I've compared, it really doesn't look that way at all. Calorie restriction initially reduces visceral fat. This means that even if you don't lose much body weight, you lose fat around your heart, liver, and other organs. And randomized trials and metabolic ward studies show even 5 to 10% weight loss can reduce your visceral fat by 30%. And visceral fat also decreases, by the way, with exercise, even without weight loss as well. Further, a 2009 randomized trial found visceral fat reduction and liver fat reduction in participants who lost, again, very little weight simply through a calorie-restricted diet. It's very clear here that calorie restriction, it reduces visceral fat around your organs, including your heart, the same effect we see with semaglutide, which simply forces your calorie restriction. These drugs are not unique. Even with little body fat loss, you can see cardiac improvements because visceral fat is reduced while on the drug. The bottom line is that calorie restriction works. It always has. The drug doesn't heal heart tissue. It forces you to eat less. You lose visceral fat, even if you don't lose much body weight, and then your health markers improve. When you come off the drug, you then will usually start eating more, gain back the visceral fat, and then the markers worsen again. The only difference with semaglutide is you're outsourcing calorie restriction to a pharmaceutical. You can't escape the calories. So I hope it's clear that you can't escape these things. Or for those who don't like to talk about calories or put much stock in them, you can't escape the way you eat and how much food you consume. Simple as that. Study after study confirms this across all diets and lifestyles. It's not sexy to talk about calories, and it doesn't sound good in marketing for weight loss programs, but it's the truth. In clinical trials, people on these drugs cut their calorie intake by an average of 35%. For someone eating 2,000 calories a day, that's 700 fewer calories per day, and even more for those who are eating even higher amounts, which usually people are. You can see it clearly in this chart. It's just calorie restriction. Those on semaglutide ate about 1,700 calories worth of food, and those not on it ate 2,600 calories worth of food. That's a big difference when it comes to weight loss. The study goes on to confirm exactly what I'm saying here, that, quote, the weight reduction of once weekly semaglutide is likely related to reduced calorie intake in response to effects on the control of your eating, decreased appetite, and reduced hunger. How safe are these drugs? This is a big area of contention. Yes, there are adverse reactions, and when you look closely, you may decide that maybe it's not worth it for you. But if you are severely obese, some of these side effects might feel like a fair trade-off. But if you just want to lose a bit of weight, 10, 20, 30, 40, even 50 pounds, they start to make a whole lot less sense. Or if you want to gain the claimed benefits like heart protection, you can see that you can achieve that on your own if you wanted. It's also crucial to recognize that most of these trials on these drugs used in this way only lasted about 2 to 4 years. We have no long-term data on what happens after stopping the drug or what using it for 5, 10 plus years might do to someone. Some people claim that these drugs have been around for 20 years, so they're safe. Well, let's clarify that. The GLP-1 class has existed since 2005. That is true, mainly at lower doses for type 2 diabetes in specific populations. What has not been around for 20 years is higher dose semaglutide used for weight loss long term. Many advocates for these drugs continue to claim that if there were any catastrophic issues, we would know since they've been used for a couple decades in diabetics. However, a smaller number of scientists and doctors say that there's still good reason for hesitation. They know that the population who originally started taking them were a group of people who were already quite unwell. They have a degenerative condition, diabetes, so they get sicker over time. It could be easy for semaglutide to be causing negative effects on the diabetics back then, and that it's missed because it's not seen as a separate issue. Okay, what about the scary adverse reactions you've heard people talk about? The pancreatitis, the diabetic retinopathy, vision loss, stomach paralysis, severe fatigue, acute kidney disease. These are all real concerns and effects for some people. One rare but serious concern is vision loss. A study of 350,000 diabetics found that the risk of developing an eye stroke doubled after 2 years on Ozempic compared to other drug classes. This issue appears rare, but people with diabetes or high blood pressure are the higher risk, and that's a lot of people taking these drugs. Semaglutide and lean body mass loss. What's the scoop here? Another major concern is the loss of muscle mass, or more accurately put, loss of lean body mass.
But here's the rub. 1, you have to take it forever. 2, it's expensive. 3, most of people are not aware that not only do you lose fat, but you lose muscle. So about 50% of the weight you lose is muscle. And muscle is where your metabolism is. It burns 7 times the calories as fat, and you need it for longevity and health. And so when you lose muscle, your whole health declines. It's the center of your health. And it's very tough to get that back. So you have to really increase protein, and you have to hit the gym hard with weights if you're going to be on a drug like Ozempic.
It appears the loss of lean body mass on these drugs is closer to 40%. That's muscle, bone, and other lean tissue. This is a big deal. You want to keep your lean body mass to remain stable and high as you age, as all kinds of bad things can happen if it doesn't. Here's a chart showing lean body mass loss on the drug versus plain calorie restriction. You can see about 40% lean body mass loss when using the drug, and you can see that in the orange bars. Versus if you're doing natural calorie restriction without any drugs and no exercise, it's about 25% when you look at these blue bars. If you're doing exercise plus calorie restriction, it's only about 17% loss in the green bar. So it's not true that lean body loss is the same between drug-induced calorie restriction and natural calorie restriction. The drug is associated with much more rapid loss of muscle and lean body mass. An advocate for the drug might say, yes, that's why we recommend strength training while you take it. Sure, but if you're already modifying your behavior, hitting the gym regularly, and focusing on the foods that you eat, you may not need the drug after all, and it could actually become a long-term obstacle for all the reasons I'm discussing here. And let's not forget, you're using a pharmaceutical without long-term safety studies used in this way. Personally, I'm not one for gambling with pharmaceutical companies if I can avoid it. Many people will say, but it gives you a leg up. It jumpstarts things. That's what the proponents will say. The thing with using a drug to just lose a little bit of weight is that it bypasses the necessary work temporarily. Changing your diet is pretty hard. Losing weight, pretty hard. Keeping the weight off, actually very hard. The hard awaits people once they come off the medication, if they do, or once it starts to lose efficacy, which it might. We don't really know. And as I mentioned, I think for most of us that just want to lose a few pounds, we can do this without these types of drugs, and we should definitely try to if we can. For the morbidly obese, again, who have strong food addictions, that's a tougher call, and I understand that because staying obese brings with it so many high risks. Regardless, managing food, managing your exercise is going to be necessary no matter what you decide to do. Dr. Lane Norton says, well, it shouldn't be just either or, that you can use lifestyle modifications and you can integrate those with these drugs. Sure, they can be paired, and it's better doing that than just doing no changes at all. But many of us see, and we have seen, how bypassing our own bodily systems often leads to worse outcomes down the line. Every pharmaceutical thought to be a lifesaver comes with a cost. The question is, how big is that cost? When you're talking about NSAIDs, associated with GI bleeding, heart attack, kidney failure, acetaminophen, liver and kidney damage, corticosteroids, hypertension, higher blood pressure, bone loss, proton pump inhibitors, kidney disease, possible cancer links, statins, muscle issues, diabetes. Is semaglutide the exception? Maybe, but I'd make an educated guess that it's likely not. But many people I have seen are using these drugs to lose 10, 20, 30, 40 pounds, and they're being oversold on the extra benefits like the mental clarity, the less anxiety, the reduced inflammation that I mentioned. Some of the functional medicine docs I see who promote the drugs often are doing so because they personally use them. They have their own health issues and still believe in the understanding that their own bodies are being attacked by autoimmunity or that their inflammation has been turned on and it can't turn off. But if you look at their history, and I have worked before with my colleagues, you see years of pharmaceutical use. You see years of antibiotics, steroids, hormones, never connecting that maybe their ongoing symptoms are linked up to that perpetual cycle of pharmaceutical use. Now they believe this new drug in town will fix their problems and their patients' problems. And this mindset is what I am concerned with. It's the most insidious part because it really continues to drive people outside of their bodies, and people perpetually misunderstand their body's signals. The reality is most of us want that shortcut. Ironically, the shortcut often takes longer when it's all said and done. I've seen this clinically over and over because all kinds of things get messed up when you're trying to speed track something, including your metabolism oftentimes. Whenever you're trying to lose weight very, very quickly, a lot of times your metabolism will take a hit. A Zen saying that I really like that illustrates this, in my opinion, is to go fast, slow down. Just think about when you're trying to rush somewhere. You drop your keys, you have to pick them up. Then because you had to pick them up, your cup falls out and your hand spills everywhere, spilled on you. The rush will end up leading to you taking longer. And so you were rushing to go faster, but you actually ended up taking longer. That's what I'm talking about here. The people who continue to just look for the quick thing that can get them there faster are often the ones that spend years doing that. And I see this working with people all the time. They go from one thing to the next, one distraction after the next. It's the people who really decide, I'm going to adopt a solid, logical, fundamental plan, and I'm going to make real lasting changes to change my life. These are the people who make long-term progress. Regardless of what you decide to do with the drugs, you will need to learn how to do that and how to manage the emotional and mental components that cannot come up around that. I'm not saying that's easy. It's not, but it is the reality. Here are my final thoughts, the pros and the cons of taking these drugs. The pros, in my opinion, a short list, but a decent list. It may replace other medication. If someone is addressing factors that have influenced them to have ill health, they might be able to come off blood pressure medication. They might be able to come off a statin. They might be able to come off other drugs while they're taking this drug. So that is a pro. It also can create a dramatic change in a person's life quickly, often inspiring them to take those further steps to improve their lifestyle and health. And sometimes that can be really motivating for someone. And also for those who are severely obese, the high risk of other diseases, these drugs may be more valid consideration due to the competing risk of staying obese and remaining in those risk groups. So those are like 3 decent pros. Now, here is a list of cons, and in my opinion, it's a longer list. The side effects can be mild for many people, and then they can be severe for some people, depending on the individual. Now, if you're microdosing it, it does seem less that would be the case. Also, the potential risks include stomach paralysis, bowel obstruction, thyroid tumors. The FDA actually advises those with a personal family history of thyroid cancer to avoid these drugs. Pancreatitis, it's officially listed as an adverse reaction. Also, another con, it requires long-term, lifelong use to maintain benefits. It lacks long-term safety study for use in the general population and use in this way. It causes lean body mass loss, significant enough that Eli Lilly has begun testing semaglutide in combination with an investigational monoclonal antibody to preserve lean mass while losing the fat. It does not address the underlying drivers of obesity, including our food environment, emotional eating, ultra-processed food dependence. It also can lead to malnutrition for some and lethargy, low energy. It's expensive currently. It's often over $1,000 a month for brand name versions or a few $100s a month for compounded microdosing versions. It can bring up all kinds of underlying issues with the food and addictions, and it surfaces them because you can no longer use the food for comfort, which can be quite startling for people who have been doing that for many years. And so many people don't know how to address that when that shows up. It also raises concerns about triggering and worsening eating disorders, especially since it's so easy to get online now. So that is a long list of cons. Stay tuned for another video where I will give you practical approaches to losing weight and keeping it off if you want to do it the natural way, rooted in how the body works metabolically. Let me know in the comments what your experience is with GLP-1 drugs, if you've had any, or what's your experience with just trying to lose weight naturally. And share this video with someone who needs to hear the full scoop on these types of weight loss drugs.